Thanks, folks, for participating in this webinar. I'm Dushyant Pathak. You can also call me D if you run into me anywhere. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Technology Management and Corporate Relations here at UC Davis, and also Executive Director of Venture Catalyst. And it's a pleasure to be providing you with some backdrop and background information relating to the 2018-19 iteration of our STAIR grant program. Why don't we jump into the first slide? I should also let you know that I have a number of my colleagues here with me, and I'll let them just quickly introduce themselves.
Hi, this is Zane Starkey-Wolf. I'm Associate Director of New Venture Resources for Venture Catalyst.
And my name is Mike Lemke. I'm a Program Coordinator with Venture Catalyst, working with administration of the STAIR grant.
Hi, my name is Barry Curtis. I'm part of Innovation Access under Dushyant's organization. Our role is to address any questions or concerns related to intellectual property associated with the STAIR grant program.
And I'm Arkady Hagopian. I'm one of the analysts for the Venture Catalyst team.
That's great. Thanks, folks. And I will point out that Mike is the primary coordinator and driver for the program. So while any of us can field your questions and address any issues or concerns you may have, both leading up to submitting your proposals as well as during the program itself, Mike really is on the front lines of fielding and coordinating and making sure that everything proceeds smoothly. So the first slide, which I hope you can see, just gives you an agenda for what we hope to cover during the webinar today. In addition to a very brief overview of who we are, we'll tell you about the objectives of the program, some exciting new developments with respect to both internal and external partners that expand what we can fund and really add additional synergistic support to the program, the application process review criteria, and then some of the eligibility requirements that you should be aware of, and then hopefully give you some time for Q&A at the end. We won't go through the previous STAIR grant awardees, but they are in the presentation. You can look them up, and they're also listed online. Next slide, please, Arkady. So the Technology Management Corporations division, as it was set up and formed about 7 years ago, was at that time really a new approach, a coordinated, integrated approach to interfacing the research and the technologies that are conducted and developed on campus here at UC Davis with the infrastructure for commercialization outside the university. The way that organized the division is in 3 units, and I should point out that based on a strategic imperative from the Chancellor, our Office of Corporate Relations will be transitioning out of Office of Research into Development and Alumni Relations as of May 1st, but is until then still within this coordinated infrastructure for taking research all the way through to the commercial environment for market impact in line with our public mission of helping translate, transform cutting-edge university research into products and services that better society and make an impact outside the university. Innovation Access, which Barry mentioned, is the upstream unit within TMCR, responsible for stewarding intellectual property and the transactions related to intellectual property that are critical to translating research into impact. It's really imperative that you contact and engage with Barry and others in the Innovation Access team, and actually Bill Tucker has just joined us as well. He's the Executive Director of Innovation Access, because they will help you really understand how to best position your technology for it to be the most competitive for commercial translation. Venture Catalyst supports all of the activities, efforts, resources in collaboration with our Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship to create robust and well-formed startups which will have the best ability to raise capital and be successful. And our Office of Corporate Relations helps manage and facilitate interactions with established companies outside the university. Next slide. So what is the STAIR grant? Firstly, it's an acronym for Science Translation and Innovative Research Grants. I won't read through all the elements of the slide. You can look at those. But this program really is focused on enabling commercial feasibility, proof of concept for research and technologies that have intellectual property underpinnings, look like they may have commercial potential, either as startups and foundational technology to enable a startup, or in terms of enabling effective interactions with industry partners, either for further sponsored research engagement or for other collaborative engagements with industry partners. It should really be thought of as gap funding. The idea is to provide funds which traditional funding agencies typically won't enable, because you're really looking to do that work which isn't necessarily the high science. You've done the high science, you have a quality publication in place, you've got some intellectual property either as a disclosed invention or as a filed patent application, and you really need to show that you can reproduce this externally, you can create a prototype that will demonstrate the ability to utilize or deploy a product or device in the marketplace, or even in many cases enable the prophetic claims in a provisional patent application, so you can have a solid formal filing that can represent strong foundational IP for a startup or for engagement with industry. We also, as I indicated, have additional funding partners that we've been able to bring on board because of the success we've had with this program, which is entering its 6th year now. We have been able to get a budget of $250,000 each year from the Office of Research, capped at $50,000 per project. And we have a number of partners, TechXL, which is a very unique venture firm that has agreed to match funding or provide funding for projects that are of particular interest to them. Elanco, which is in the animal health space, has agreed to also participate as a potential funding partner going forward. Leo Labs, a biopharma biotech company, are 3 of our external funding partners, and we continue to look to add to these. More importantly, perhaps in some ways, we also have internal support beyond Office of Research. The School of Veterinary Medicine, College of Biological Sciences, through support from Dean Larimore and Dean Winey, respectively, have agreed to provide additional funds to support projects that successfully make it through our grant review process, where the PI is primarily associated with their school, college, respectively. And the Innovation Institute for Food and Health has also agreed to step in to provide additional funding for projects that fall within their areas of focus in the food and nutrition space. So I've already given you a sense of the broad intent. It's really meant to provide additional incentives for translating research out of the university in line with our public mission to really make sure that in addition to moving the frontiers of knowledge forward, educating the next generation of public citizens, academics, industry representatives, also really turns this great research or provides a pathway for this research, turning into products and services that can make an impact in the lives of people outside the university. We're looking to stimulate entrepreneurial activity powered by technology advances driven at UC Davis, and to really spur more innovation not just at Davis, but within our broad ecosystem here within the greater Davis-Sacramento region. We look to fund translational research. This is not meant to be another fundamental research funding program. Recall that I said it's meant to be gap funding. You want to be able to convince the reviewers that the funds that you're requesting are not available from traditional funding sources, NIH, NSF, USDA, et cetera, and the like. And a very important aspect of this program is, again, in line with this not being a traditional academic program, the industry, the reviewers are industry reviewers primarily. We also have internal domain experts from amongst our faculty and academic administration that participate to provide particular expertise in cutting edge areas, as well as with respect to the teams that are presenting. But we really look to external industry experts, which include investors, entrepreneurs, industry professionals, to review these programs for market need, market fit, and that commercial proof of concept that represents the continuum from research to commercial and market impact. Also in line with this, these are not your traditional, typical, long, detailed academic grant applications. They're short applications, basically 4 pages, one of which is reserved for charts, figures, and supporting diagrams. So we really look to our applicants to be succinct, be very clear about the benefits, the impact, the milestones, and the enablement towards commercial proof of concept that the funds that they're requesting will enable through the program. Very importantly, because unlike many of these other programs where you either get funding or you don't, and that's it, you really don't know what happened or really benefit other than from funds. We really want to make sure that in addition to the funds that we provide to the successful award recipients, we also enable this to be a learning experience with respect to understanding what is expected from successful translational research from the perspective of the industry reviewers. So we require that our reviewers provide written comments, written feedback on a variety of elements of competitive proposal review. We, in addition to scores and rankings, and we collate and anonymize all of those comments, and every single applicant gets written feedback with respect to the strengths and areas of further development that would make for a more effective proposal in a subsequent year. We also assign industry mentors to all of the finalists, and typically about 50% of the applicants are selected as finalists so that they can engage with an industry mentor. And of course, we select and typically assign a minimum of 2 mentors to all of the award recipients to work with them through the year-long grant program, both through regular meetings, but also to be there to provide mentoring guidance to make for the most successful outcomes. So just a quick mention of the program partners that I identified earlier on. In these cases, the sponsoring partners will make up to $50,000 available per proposal for grant recipients that have been successful through our process. So if our selection process, our selection committee selects award recipients that fall within their areas of interest, they will review those proposals, and if they seem like there will be ones where they can add additional value, both with respect to engagement and mentoring, but also with respect to additional funds, they have the ability to step in and provide additional funding support. We ask that PIs who feel that their grant proposals might fall within areas of our sponsoring company's scope of interest to indicate that in the project abstract section. but please apply and direct your budget requests and program proposal just towards the $50,000 of Office of Research funding, because that's really what determines whether your project will be selected by the review committee before it goes for a second line of review by our program partners. If you have questions along the way, and you'll see this again multiple times, please don't hesitate to send an email either to stairgrant@ucdavis.edu or to any of us, and we'll get back to you very quickly. What I do want to stress is this isn't like an exam or a test where we want you to be successful without getting assistance and guidance. We want you to submit the best and most likely to be successful grant application. So we're here and available to help and support and assist you in making the most solid, the most effective, and the most competitive proposal. So please don't hesitate to contact any of us, either within Innovation Access, which I highly recommend you do as soon as possible, or Venture Catalyst, so that we can provide you with any guidance that you would like. Tech Excel's area of interest, just quickly, are in the plant and crop science space and in animal health and nutrition. You can look up more details on our website. Leo Pharma's areas of interest are in the biopharma space, but they're focused really on dermatological indications, and in particular on some of the more rare disease indications in the dermatological space. And once again, there's more detail available on that. And Elanco's area of interest are in the animal health space. We will be getting more information with respect to additional areas of interest, because as many of you know, Elanco recently spun out of the broader company Eli Lilly and went public, and so there have been some areas of strategic reorientation. For example, they are much more interested now in companion animal health than they were when they were within Eli Lilly, whereas mostly in the livestock food animal space. So that's, again, a very interesting program partner that we've added to the mix. Internal partners, the School of Veterinary Medicine, the College of Biological Sciences have both committed to support grants that make it through our process, where the PI has a primary appointment in SVM or CBS respectively. They are willing to support 50% of the STAIR budget that you request, up to a max of $25,000 for up to 2 award recipients who are primarily have primary appointments as faculty within their schools, colleges. And after the award process through the Venture Catalyst STAIR program, they will work very closely with the awardees to create modified budgets and figure out the best way for the additional funding to support the programs going forward. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. I think the next slide focuses on CBS. It's exactly the same except with respect to College of Biological Sciences, so we'll skip that and move on to the next slide, which is the Innovation Institute for Food and Health. Very similar, except that this is an institute within the Office of Research, so doesn't involve support from a dean. It does involve support, though, from the Innovation Institute of Food and Health, whose area of focus is in food, nutrition, and sustainable and secure nutrition, global nutrition. They review proposals and projects to see if they fit within their areas of focus and would likewise step in and provide additional support in the same vein to the CBS and SVM support. Eligibility is important. We try not to be very prescriptive about this, but there are some certain bright lines where you wouldn't be eligible for this program. Most importantly, as I've already indicated, it's really meant to be gap funding. If this is just another ROI or a traditional supplement to an existing fundamental research grant, that's really not the intent for this program. It's really meant to be focused on translational research with milestones and outcomes that the traditional funding agencies do not typically fund. It really needs to be past the fundamental research stage. It really, again, at risk of sounding like a broken record, be focused on translation of that fundamental research into commercial impact or towards the commercial sector to demonstrate proof of concept and commercial feasibility. We want to know that there is technology that has demonstrated results in the research environment. We require there to be some intellectual property underpinnings because the success of translation of technologies into the commercial sector really do require that competitive advantage and the ability to block competitors, which comes from having strong intellectual property. Importantly, this year we made a change where if your technology is under a letter agreement with a company, you're still eligible. But if it's an option or a license agreement, then our assessment is that the translational event has already occurred. And so you wouldn't be eligible for funding through this program. Important element, you can submit more than one application as long as your proposals represent a different project and aren't overlapping or aren't exactly the same or slight variations of the same. So you actually improve your chances of success by submitting multiple applications, and they're short and simple. So really, you shouldn't feel like that's not something that's very doable. You have to have PI status at UC Davis, and if you have PI status, then you're eligible to apply for a STAIR grant. Postdocs and staff are eligible to apply as co-PIs, not as PIs on these grant applications. Allowable costs, again, while we try not to be too prescriptive because we don't want to squelch the innovation and creativity that we're hoping to encourage. Again, awards are capped at $50,000. You don't have to ask for the full $50,000 as long as your budget request and the milestones that you're proposing to enable with it both result in really moving the ball forward in a substantive way along the continuum of progress from research to market, and as long as is feasible to actually achieve the milestones that you propose with the funds requested. We only support direct costs. We don't allow for capital equipment, which we define as equipment that costs $5,000 or more. Small equipment supplies that are under that, as long as you can justify why you need those to advance the goals of the project. It's not just some small equipment you're getting for your lab for other purposes, is eligible. Up to 20% of the funds may be used for salary support, no more. And salary support can go towards supporting postdocs, graduate students, and research staff only, not for faculty salaries. We have an exception to this 20% rule. In some cases, you may be asking to develop software, write some code as an adjunct to a device or an instrument which is supported by patent application or invention disclosure. We recognize that in that case, what you need is the salary support for someone to write the code. So if you have a proposal that includes that type of software development milestone, up to $10,000 of the awarded budget can be applied towards the salary support, even if your total budget is less than $50,000, which means that the $10,000 could represent more than the 20% of the total ask. So that's an exception to enable graphical user interface, software types of adjuncts to a more hardware or other type of development proposal. External contractors, CROs, chemistry developers, design, prototyping firms are allowed. In fact, in many cases, that's a very good use of funds because it shows the ability to reproduce something in a more market-based external environment as opposed to the artificial academic lab environment. That ability to reproduce something under real-world conditions is actually very important with respect to this grant program. Timelines. We launched this year's iteration towards the end of January. The application deadline was recently extended to March 11th to reflect the new program partners we brought on and to give folks the opportunity to address proposals towards their areas of focus and interest. Unlike your typical proposals, we have a pretty rapid timeline as well. Really keeps the venture catalyst team and their colleagues in innovation access very focused and busy because there's a lot of work that goes into the proposal review process. We have 40 external reviewers. We have an online system. We've got the internal system. We have the internal reviews, comments, collation, anonymization. We have a very critical process where our reviewers come to campus and spend 3/4 of a day going from the 10 to 15 finalists that we select to ranking all of them. We force rank every single one of the finalists. We do this all very efficiently and very quickly so that we can provide a notice of award in mid-June of 2019 with an anticipated disbursement of funds between July and August of 2019. So you can see that we're trying to move this at a pace that's consistent with innovation and not the typical 8-month to year-and-a-half time frame of traditional grants, where by the time you get funded, it's no longer really an innovative project. It's kind of old and not relevant anymore. We also have an awardee showcase at the same date as our in-person review session. We expect, and it's a requirement of eligibility for the proposal, that anyone that receives an award participate in this awardee showcase. It's a mini symposium where all of our external reviewers participate, as well as internal faculty and leadership on campus. We expect that to be in early to mid-May of the subsequent year after the grant. And the project period is 1 year at a maximum from funds disbursement. We have in the past given some no-cost extensions, but we're beginning to crack down on this and probably will not support too many of these, if any, going forward. Because again, if it's taking you longer than a year to support this, you're not really in sync with the timelines that are consistent with innovation. Another important element in terms of eligibility is participation in our Entrepreneurship Academy. We collaborate very closely, as I indicated at the outset, with the Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and we find that the Entrepreneurship Academies that they run 4 times a year are really powerful in helping our research faculty, staff, and others recognize and understand what makes the difference between very high quality academic research and the type of research that can effectively translate into the commercial setting. So we do require teams to participate in those, and we provide the funding and support to participate within those programs. Other review criteria in addition to that, I've already mentioned fit for the program objectives and eligibility. Reviewers will be looking to see that this is a project that's consistent with the objectives of the STAIR grant program. Obviously, technical merit is a critical component, and your ability to clearly describe your work in a succinct fashion, and also outline any prior proof of concept or other enabling research results that you produced in your laboratory or that are ongoing through parallel funding that you already have, really help make for a stronger proposal. Because keep in mind, $50,000 isn't sufficient to do everything you need to do to get commercial proof of concept, but the anticipation is that this is synergistic funding with other funds that you've obtained from other sources. Budget milestones, timelines are really critical. We often have proposals where folks propose milestones that are entirely infeasible to accomplish for the funds requested, and our reviewers really see that as not having a clear understanding of what it takes to achieve the results that are proposed, and so those don't get reviewed very well. In other cases, folks request much more funding with very meager milestones that aren't going to move the dial really in a meaningful way. So do make sure that the budget milestones timelines align effectively with getting the type of proof of concept that's necessary, and demonstrating an awareness of where the project fits in the continuum of going from research to market is really important. We recognize, as to the reviewers, that $50,000 isn't going to get your project into the market, but it needs to demonstrate that it's going to result in a value inflection point, de-risk substantially in moving you closer to the marketplace, and your ability to describe that you recognize those steps and recognize where this will take your technology forward is very helpful in reviewing and ranking your proposal versus others. The way to think about this is it is going to be comparative relative ranking, if you will, even though that isn't how it's set up. There isn't a curve or grading. But folks, as they review proposals, can't help but saying, well, proposal A just looked better in terms of meeting the grant program's outcomes and the impacts than proposal B. So anything you can do to make your proposal look much more competitive is going to make it review better. It doesn't matter if you're curing a disease that is devastating, or if you're moving something forward that may not have that type of life-changing impact. It really depends on it being translational. So don't think that if you're not doing something that's in a human disease, human health space, that you won't be competitive. We recognize, as to our reviewers, and they represent every domain and technology that we are involved with at UC Davis, we recognize that it really has to do with that impact of moving from laboratory towards the market and utilizing these funds effectively to de-risk these projects. Next slide. We, as I indicated, do have a very active and effective and proactive mentor engagement program, and it is a requirement for receiving the award that you agree to engage effectively with the mentors that are assigned. These are really extremely experienced and highly regarded industry professionals. They're volunteering and giving their time to engage with this important program. So we request and ask that that same respect is shown back to them in the engagement with them. We facilitate through the Venture Catalyst team quarterly meetings, whether by phone or in person, with the assigned mentors. But we found that the most effective grant award recipients engage much more frequently and independently with the assigned mentors. And that's been very effective even beyond the year of the grant funding in terms of that translation into market impact and supporting startups that have been formed based on this. We require progress reports 6 months and 1 year from date of funds disbursement. And the timelines and milestones need to be addressed. And these are agreed upon along with the assigned mentor before any funds will be dispersed to the award recipients. So without that initial mentor engagement, you won't get any funds. And at some point, if that's not happening for any reason, the funds can be withdrawn from the award recipient. I mentioned the STAIR Awardee Showcase. It's a short presentation, 10 minutes, plus 5 minutes of Q&A. We do expect participation in that. We expect participation in the Entrepreneurship Academy, as I mentioned previously. And with that, I'll just step through the next few slides, which give you a list of previous year's award winners until we get to the last slide, which gives you some contact information, links to get more information on how to contact us. I haven't seen any questions come across the transom, but maybe someone's been paying attention. But I think we're going to open this up for questions unless my colleagues here think I've missed some important elements that we'd like you to be aware of. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to unmute the microphones, and if you have any questions, please chime in.
But if you
Any questions?
Is anyone there?
Hey, this is Ryan Sharp, part of the Venture Catalyst team. We did have somebody come through on the chat that I saw asking about questions to submit an ROI and that deadline.
Great. Can we go back to that slide
Yeah, this is Barry and Bill, who's my boss, may chime in here as well. But the ROI is not, as Dushan said, it's not a quiz. It's not something where you need to worry about whether it's perfectly written in substance or content before you submit it. It's really just a starting point for our team in Innovation Access to be aware of your invention and to ask you some basic questions about the invention so that we can begin to develop a feel, as Dushan said earlier, for what the IP strategy might be for this particular technology and how that strategy can best be exploited as if you were to be a winner and then subsequent, if you were to be an awardee and then subsequent to that. So we don't want people not applying because they think the ROI is some kind of critical stage gate or some kind of daunting weed out process. It's really just a way for us to start the discussion with you about your technology and give us a chance to evaluate the technology. As Dushan said, both on technical merit, on commercial potential, a key aspect of this program is will the technology survive in the marketplace, both any potential IP challenges, and will the IP be robust enough to differentiate the product or service you're developing in the marketplace. So that's what we need to analyze, and the ROI is the first step in that process.
So I didn't see the question, but in prior information sessions, there was a deadline that had been proposed for submitting your ROI, and as I'd indicated in those information sessions, it was not a hard deadline. It is really to just encourage engagement with the Innovation Access team. We launched the program January 23rd, so we didn't want everyone submitting at the last minute and then coming and sending in ROIs to Innovation Access on the day before, because that won't allow for effective engagement. Obviously, at this point, we're pretty close to the application deadline. So at this point, if you don't already have an invention that you've disclosed, that's the supporting basis for your STAIR grant proposal. Just get it in as soon as you can before the deadline. At the end of the day, the idea is just to help make your proposal more competitive. And so the more engagement you can have before you submit your proposal with the Innovation Access team, the stronger and more robust that part of your application is going to be in terms of the review process. So again, all of our guidances and requirements are really designed towards helping you have the most competitive and the strongest proposal.
Any more questions?
Okay, well, if you think of questions later, you can always email us. Arcady, if you can move to the last slide again, so folks can see once again where they need to email us. I believe this presentation is or will be posted on our website as well, so you can find it there. And I believe the audio stream may also be posted somewhere. So if there was anything particularly exciting or compelling in what I was saying that you want to hear again, you can go back and replay that portion. But please apply at least once. You can submit multiple applications, and we'd love to see your proposals come in. So thanks a lot and good luck.